Oh, hello, and welcome to Season 2 of Super Pros Bros. I'm Player 1, Ike, and with me, as always, is...
Player 2, Eli, and Brahamid. Did you know this podcast is available on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify?
I did not! Brotendo, are those the same places that they could
Like,
comment
share.
and subscribe?
We are doing very different energies, but it sure is.
We are doing very different energies. But we are doing the same show!
So
Welcome everyone for returning. And today, well, before we get to today, what went on with you in the last couple weeks, my guy? Anything to share of note?
Not much. I have been watching way too much League of Legends because there's an international tournament going on, and I'm fucking so disappointed in Western teams. Sad. It is a travesty. It makes me sad. North America and Europe are just circling the drain. It's hard to watch sometimes, man. Like, they make decisions, and I'm like, what's wrong with you? The best one is the best
Stop.
one I've seen.
Get some help.
So they'll do this thing where they'll like show replay, but they'll show like they have a camera backstage, right? Where they show like the coaching staff. And the best one, to sum up how it kind of feels, is they pan. So team Mad Lions made the worst fucking call and just decided to try and rush Baron in a 4v5 situation. So they got fucking blown out of the water. So they just punted their massive lead over a terrible call.
Mm-hmm.
They panned backstage and they just showed their head coach, and it was the most quintessential, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed face. Like, it, so that sentiment so perfectly sums up how this guy looked. He's just like, God damn it. Like, just, we had it, and it's gone now. It's just like, that is how it feels being a fucking European or North American fan watching MSI. Just like, come on, guys, we're better. What are we doing? What happened? Otherwise, my life continues to be largely the same. Life is fairly static. I mean, when things change, they will change rapidly, but for the time being, they haven't yet, so here we are.
Well, there you go.
What about you? What's going on?
So last we spoke was like 2 weeks ago. So since then, I believe if I'm remembering our timeline, I went to the Pro Tour. Had lots of fun. Did not do as much winning as I dreamt. I ended up having a very the most medium of potential finishes, and I went 8-8. Of those 16 rounds, I did enjoy 13, which is, if you know me, very impressive, because I do not like losing. However, I found humor and fun even in my losses, so personal growth moment. Whoop, whoop. 3 of those, however, one of them, I have this thing, and it's definitely something I need to check, and this is going to sound worse than it is, but here it is when people speak to me in broken English, and then there's a word in English they don't understand, some part of my brain just feels like they're lying to me, and I get very pissed off. It's not rational, and I know that. However, it's just one of those lizard brain things that you were understanding me a minute ago, and now you don't. The fuck? It just sends me for a loop every time. It's something I've gotten progressively better at noticing, being Isaac. They're not doing it. They just know 3 languages, and you only know 1, so shut up and stop getting angry about it. There was one guy who was nice. He was Brazilian, and we were talking, and then at one point there was this break, and I say something, and he looks at me confused, and I was like, ah, and it just I let it piss me off. Very emphasis on let, that was my bad decision, and I kind of got spun by it. I ended up losing also, which didn't help, but I went and broke a $1 pen, sat in a corner, listened to my song of the day that you'll hear later, and calmed the fuck down. One other round, I missaw the board state, and I understand why this sent me for a loop. was
Uh-huh.
I looked at his board. I was like, okay, he has, for those of you that play Magic, sorry, this is going to go inside baseball. He has one untapped land. He cannot cast the counterspell that's in his deck. Cool, I can play this and get him. And then I play this card and he counters it. I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, I had 2 land untapped. And I was like, what? And so I just like got mad visual whiplash and was just spinning for the next like 2 minutes while he just like whooped the shit out of me. And I was just
Oof.
like, ah. And I did a really good thing and not freak out. I like explained why I was freaking out, made it as like non-antagonistic as possible, and then he tried to explain it being a good human being. However, I was not in a state to hear it, but I did a next level play, and instead of telling him to shut up or run away screaming, I learned this from a friend sort of. I just took out my headphones. I didn't even have music on. I just took out my headphones and put them in as this universal, please leave me alone, like cue, which he picked up on. He's like, okay, got it. Stop talking. Which I feel a little bit bad because the guy was a sweet fellow, albeit,
Wait, like,
the
isn't
person
that
that beat.
usually not allowed though?
What? No, I had lost the match. The match was over.
Oh, okay.
And I just did it as a way to be like, I need to like, I can't run fast enough, so I need to remove myself from the circumstance. So I just put in my headphones and just like got my shit together without like ripping anything in half, and then like walked away. And I was like, looking back, I'm like, good job, Isaac. You didn't burn the place down. It's a improvement.
It could have been worse.
It could have been a lot worse. So it very much steps in the right direction. And then the last one, I could not tell you, gun to my mom's head, I could not tell you why I freaked out. But I know there was one more round where I just lost my shit and was fit to be tied, and I have no idea why. I could, like, nothing. I remember leaving and being like, and just like walking around the hall, being just furious. If somebody went, hey, why are you angry? Even a minute later, I've been like, don't know. Just fucking pissed.
Don't know, but fuck you.
But fuck everything. It was so bad. So that happened.
All right.
Since then, I've gotten back. Got to hang out with my boys, which was really nice because there was like a week, basically the better part of 2 weeks where I didn't get to see either like my good local friends. Got to go
Nice.
play in a little Friday night Magic, have some fun, go out to get some tacos, play
Nice.
a great game that I would recommend to everyone that's like $10. It's called The Mind. It is a game that uses math, but also vibes. Would wreck. It's silly. It's fun. It'll lead to great, stupid moments. Speaking of recommendations, what are we telling people about this week, Bro Hamster?
Seamless segue.
This form-fitting dress was meant for you. Because it's seamless.
Anyway,
Get it?
I can't perfectly replicate the
Oh, my ringtone? Says the pitches must have
It's a vehicle. Yeah. Anyway, for those of you who know, you know. Anyway, so what we're gonna actually talk about is lessons that we got from animation. There is a
It's
great video.
Yep. Great two-parter by Movies with Mikey.
Thank you. Where he talks about things that he learned from animation. How animation typically is something more attributed to children's media.
Bah.
And very true in most of its applications. Although I feel that there's been a slow shift towards a lot more in adult inclusivity with that, but it's still by and large the majority.
As the kids who grew up watching animation,
yeah,
want more
exactly.
animation.
As we get older, like no, keep bringing it, please.
I would still like the thing I like, please.
Yeah, it turns out I want to see wacky waving inflatable arm flailing characters. Give more. And one of his points is that there's a lot of things that you don't know that you're being fed this information, or fed these lessons, or fed these ideas, but you are. Because when you're 4 or 5, you pick up on stuff, and you pick up on cues, and you learn incidentally by observation. And so you do learn things and themes and behaviors and patterns out of kids' movies and out of animated movies. And animation has just some of the more fun, unique, and bombastic approaches to what it can tell you. And now I also, thanks to watching it earlier, I feel really guilty for the squirrel in Sword in the Stone. I hadn't really thought about that in a long time because I haven't seen that movie since I was like 11.
Mm-hmm.
But man, thinking back, man, fuck you, Merlin. Like,
Man, fuck you,
yeah. So we're gonna go through a number of great kind of themes and ideas that we picked up, and some of them, granted, we saw shows as an adult and picked it up, but some of them
Some's from our
seen as children.
childhood, some's not so much from our childhood.
Yeah. So we're gonna start. We're gonna start at some really fucking heavy notes.
So we're gonna start heavy. Bear with us, and it'll
we
lighten
will
up
come
as the
up.
day
We'll
goes
come up
on.
for air at the end. Don't worry. I'll let you start.
No, you're starting.
I'm starting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're starting heavy. Because the first thing is Grave of the Fireflies, which, if you haven't seen it,
Probably don't.
Don't or do. Do it on a day and have ice cream ready. Like, it's... Grave of the Fireflies is a phenomenal movie. It really is. But man, it's hard. It is about a young boy who's like 10 and his 3-year-old sister after they lose their home in the firebombing of Kobe. Which... yeah, as much as people talk about like the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, arguably a lot more of the worst shit was in like the fire bombings of Tokyo and Okayama and a couple other cities.
What is that?
And it ended up with hundreds of thousands of people dead and millions more displaced because turns out if you just dump fire onto a bunch of wooden cities,
Shit gets...
well,
Yeah.
yeah. So you follow them as these two siblings try and find a place to live and things to eat. And it puts in this uncomfortable, uncompromising, in your face way that what you take for granted is not permanent, and that morality and the idea of what is right and what is appropriate quickly goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Because like he needs to feed himself and his sister, so he starts stealing things. Like the idea of that is not the right thing to do, fuck that. I need to eat. Everything is morality becomes subjective, and it is a luxury that at a certain point you no longer can afford.
Mm.
And it is. You can't argue with him because he's watching his sister starve to death. It's heavy. But it's apparently, and I learned, very, very real because the people who made it lived through those fire bombings.
Mm.
They were displaced. That was something they lived through. And they're just hearing an abstract number of people who were displaced or killed is just seeing that puts a number to statistics,
Mm.
or puts a face to statistics,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that's so easily overlooked. And as somebody who's like, I've worked with homeless populations, like when you forget about people as numbers, seeing the appalling conditions that people have had to live through and survive through, and it's important context to remember. And I think that movie does a phenomenal job just putting it in your face unapologetically. That morality is subjective based on how you're living and what you have to meet, because needs come first.
Yeah. So to kind of tie into that just pleasant
Yeah,
lesson.
we're not going lower than this, by the
Yeah.
way. This is bedrock.
Yeah.
We're going up from
we're
here.
building it from here. And a good lesson to learn when hearing such stories and watching said movie is the one I got from Inside Out, which is not only that crying is okay, which that lesson is taught to you inside the movie and out, but but also that sadness is a good part of a healthy life. It is very okay, very normal, very healthy to be sad, to have moments where you cry and feel things. Whether
Yeah.
it's watching Grave of the Fireflies, whether it's remembering that you miss your friends who live in a different state now. That is very okay, very normal, and very good for you to feel that way. That is, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing bad. You shouldn't have to hide it. Anybody that tells you to can maybe go fuck themselves. It is very much a great thing and a good thing to be doing, and to let yourself have that and not feel bad because you feel that way. But just to feel.
Yeah.
As someone with a degree in psychology, you want to talk about Inside Out for a hot minute?
Uh, I think in so many ways the movie hits some really, really good points. But I think one of the more interesting things it does is um, the idea of kind of core memories being tagged with a certain kind of emotion. And the idea that joy basically hates the idea of a core memory being tagged as depressing
Mm-hmm.
because that's her polar opposite. She's upbeat, energetic, and like there's kind of an idea, I think, and unfortunately it's becoming more and more commonplace with the advent of social media, but I'm not gonna go down that fucking rabbit hole. The idea that you need to be perpetually happy, that you always need to be smiling, you always need to be on the up and up, and everything has to be wonderful. It's like it's not true.
Yep.
And it's not sustainable. Like that's the other thing too, is like you sometimes shit's just bad. Sometimes shit just sucks, and uh, there's an integrity and an authenticity to just being willing to stop and say, this is bad, and it's okay.
Yep.
Like there's so many people that like, so the core people think about the word trauma, and they think about like violence, injury, you know, being maimed in a fucking accident, a car crash, a killing.
Mm-hmm.
All that trauma is, the core fundamental component of every kind of trauma is not violence. It is a loss of control. It is when you are at something else's whim, be it nature, be it someone attacking you, be it your circumstances. And so, for a kid, being displaced,
Mm-hmm.
being yanked away from everything you know and love because your parents said, we're going, they don't have control. They don't have agency.
Yeah.
That's just unfortunate, but that is how it is. But from their perspective, it's traumatic to a degree. Now, granted, it's not permanent, it's not, there are kind of escalations, but whatever. The point is that that is hard. That is not joyful. And the other thing I do appreciate is that when depression is denied or sadness is denied, the person that fucking takes over is anger, which is absolutely appropriate. It's anger and fear that run this show after that, basically. Disgust really doesn't do much, and that's completely appropriate. Because if you're not willing to be sad, if your life is hard and you're not willing to be sad, you're almost always going to be angry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the more underspoken but kind of clever things they did at that movie. Yeah,
Speaking
it's a
of
great
things
movie.
clever things they did in other movies, what you got next on your list?
Let's talk about Perfect Blue.
Whoop.
And speaking of the dangers of social media popularity, man, this movie makes you go, man, maybe I don't know about being famous. It seems terrible. I loved this movie. And since it's hand-drawn animation, it actually still looks pretty solid.
Yep.
Yeah. God bless early 90s animation. Still looks great. Anyway, and its lesson in many ways still holds on, and it's the kind of danger of parasocial relationships. And this notion that like
what are parasocial relationships for those
parasocial
people that are as
relationships?
silly as me?
So if you see a YouTuber or an actor or whatever, and you see them over and over and over again, you believe that you have a connection with them. simply because you've heard them talk to you 1,000 times. The truth is, they don't fucking know who you are. They have no clue who you are.
They don't?
They have no idea. But if you roll up and like, hey, Philly, how's it going? He'd be like, who the fuck are you?
Sorry. Who the fuck are you?
Yeah, like, because they don't know you.
Yeah.
So that is the idea of a parasocial relationship. And where it becomes dangerous is where people believe, the audience believes that they are entitled to dictate how the person lives and how they operate.
Yeah.
And so, like, the main character in this is basically a K-pop star or a J-pop star that goes into acting. And, you know, people view her as like she was this kind of kids artist, and then she goes into like more serious roles, and she's in some show that basically has like a sex scene, and people lose their fucking mind about it because that's not who she's supposed to be.
How dare her be person?
Yeah, and you know it gets dangerous when you get like absolutely crazy people kill one of the writers for the show.
Jesus.
Yeah, like they just it's nuts. And so really it was such a what I loved about it too is that like there's layers you can go through with it. And there's also takeaway of like the stress and burden of expectations when you're trying to live to appeal just to appease your fans.
Mm-hmm.
Because she starts fucking snapping. Like there's a lot of the movie where you start debating like is this real? I don't know that it is. And when you could go back and you could piece through a lot of it and see what is and isn't real, which is so cool. But it left you with this reality that fame is not all it's cracked up to be, and that you, the audience, do not own the person. We so often don't see them as people, and they so totally are.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just this huge disconnect that is disregarded. It is really unhealthy.
Jeez.
All right, what's next on the hit parade?
Let's keep up the awkward times going with Rick and Morty. Taught me that Szechuan dipping sauce is fucking dope, yo. No. Rick and Morty taught me in the weirdest way that ignorance is bliss, and really compounded. I think showed it in a great way. If you don't believe that, I clearly disagree with you, and we can have a conversation about it. Just hit me up at superprosbros@gmail.com. I think that's our email, right? Yeah, superprosbros@gmail.com. Send me a message. We can have a discussion. However, the reason I think this, and the reason a lot of people think this, and you can find many a great, think piece video essay on this, is it's greatly typified at many an episode, but there's the episode where Rick goes and meets up with an old fling of his, the person who can embody planets or whatever, the hive mind.
Yeah.
And
Unity.
Yeah, the naming of the show's choice. And at the end of the episode, he like almost kills himself. He's so distraught over having somebody kind of hit him with the cold hard facts and, bail on him. And then you see Jerry just walking around trimming his weeds with a weed whacker. Just happy as can be. This is obvious. Rick has been snubbed, concur. However, also just had probably the best sex for like the better part of 3 weeks and is a genius. And still this moment just lays him low. And then you've got Jerry doing his weeds in complete joy. He's like every time there's so many episodes where you'll see Rick just being distraught with knowing things or not being able to control something because he can control everything else. And then here's Jerry, who constantly doesn't have a job, is constantly made fun of, and he finds joy in the little things. There's that episode where they have this juice that you can drink that it makes you think of like the best moment in a theoretical existence or something like that.
It's like him as a postman.
He's a water delivery man.
Oh, that's
and he delivers water and then just goes and goes, made my first delivery of the day, and blah, blah, blah more. And he's just like jazzed. And he just like pounds the water afterwards because it's like the best thing to him. It's just like simple and just basic isn't bad. We have this, we use that as a derogatory term. Oh, what a basic bitch. It's like, not basic means that you more easily get your things fulfilled. And every time somebody of a greater intelligence sees that someone of a lesser intelligence is enjoying their life, by and large, they like to make fun of it. And I don't think it's because they're correct. I think it's because they're projecting.
Yeah, there is, um, there's an interesting correlation between intelligence and rates of depression. Um,
Tell me
that's
more.
not incidental. Although it's one of those things. It's like you can't call it causal because no one knows how to necessarily put a cause to it.
Sure.
But one of the running ideas. There's a couple of running ideas. Is that one is that you have a fundamental knowledge of how everything is messed up, and you can't ignore like it's so easy to fixate on negative, and especially as you become more aware of more negative, there's just more terrible to fixate on.
Okay.
And that there is a greater sense of helplessness in a way that comes with more knowledge, because one of the things that in any field in any direction, the more you know, the more you realize how little you actually know. And that like
it's that line from the end of Venture Brothers. I only know that I know nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations. You've been quoting something I've been telling you the whole entire time. Sorry, didn't mean to take away.
It's all good. But yeah, so it's information does not make you happy. Like being smart does not make you happy. It just doesn't.
Nope.
It makes you capable at times, but very seldom does being smart make you happy.
Yeah. Therein is the rub.
But we're gonna start on the upswing here, people. We promised it's coming. Here we go. So I think you also had this as a sick movie, right? Like,
oh yeah, growing up, this was
Yeah.
rainy day, home with the flu, eating chicken noodle soup, watching this movie every time.
Yep, I was Tonari no Totoro, or My Neighbor Totoro. God bless you, Miyazaki. I got hooked on you young.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom. It'll be the best movie recommendation she has ever made for us. I don't think it's ever gonna be close. Anyway, this movie is wonderful. If you haven't seen it, treat yourself. Also, just watch the entire catalog from Hayao Miyazaki because the man is a gem.
Fact.
But it's really interesting because you see a lot of the world and the day-to-day occurrences from two perspectives, and the more mature older daughter Satsuki and the younger daughter and infinitely curious Mei. And it does an interesting job showing that there is a value in both. So some of the happiest times you see Satsuki is when she kind of cuts out having to be the older and mature one and just indulging with Mei and the childlike whims and discovery. Like the dream where they make the garden, she's just there for it and plays along. When they're at the train stop or the bus stop waiting, and she doesn't run away from the monster that is Totoro, but instead just like, okay, I guess we're here for this. And Mei finds so much stuff out because she's so unapologetically curious. She wants to know. She literally goes down the rabbit hole and finds this massive bearish creature. Instead of running away from it, she curls up on it for a nap.
As you do.
As one does.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Lesson learned. Curl up on large animal bellies. Nothing
Yeah, exactly.
bad will happen.
It'll be fine. And and so it really just hammered the curiosity has value. But on the other hand, when Mei goes missing because she doesn't know how to cope with the fact that mom isn't okay and Satsuki yells at her, Satsuki realizes she needs help. And so she's willing to go and find Totoro and ask for help. Because she can't do it on her own.
Mm-hmm.
And there is and that stood out to me. I don't. It's that there's just swallowing your pride and just asking for help. Like she had nothing. She had exhausted almost every option except that one.
Hmm.
I was like, okay, let's indulge the dumb childlike whims because doing it as an adult and riding your bike around yelling at shit isn't working. We don't know where she is. Let's every possible option. Let's even engage the childlike one, and it works. And sometimes just get out of your own way.
Yeah.
I need to watch that movie again.
Well, he goes and figures out where you can watch that movie again. Let me tell you about a little unknown gem called Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, so off the cuff.
Yep, nobody's ever
Off
seen
the
it.
beaten path.
Yep. So the lesson I took away from so for those of you that haven't watched it, Wreck-It Ralph is about a video game villain who is tired of being a villain and jumps games, goes and runs on escapades. One of the things that I learned about this, because I don't know about people like you at home, but I, as a nerd by society, I always felt like othered and occasionally villainized, even by, like surrounding persons.
Yeah.
And I chose to think of myself and a lot of times as the bad guy, as the the villain, the loser, whatever. And through watching this movie in weird ways, it's kind of, there's this scene to kind of jump outside of animation for a second in the show Newsroom, where one of the character goes, somewhere at some point along the line, somebody told you you were a bad guy and you believed him, and you're not. And Wreck-It Ralph very much did that for me, where it was like, yeah, you choose to be the bad guy. This is not like it, by showing it in a video game sense, it allows you to realize that we choose our own roles in life. We feel like we've been given them, just like Ralph had been given his, but you can always just metaphorically or literally leave and choose a new role. You are not the circumstance you are in. It is a circumstance that you can leave. It is not this, trapped eternal existence. You can always, it might be expensive, it might be difficult, it might be hard. And I'm saying this from a white privileged American position, to be clear. You can always just fucking leave. You can go somewhere else. This isn't a fucking like space station where to go home is to literally ask for a fucking rocket taxi. You are literally just, take your shit and bounce. It's been done throughout human history. You are not chained to the circumstance that feels unavoidable. And I know that feeling, so I don't want it to seem like it's so just, oh yeah, you just pick up your shit and leave. It fucking feels impossible. But the reality is it isn't, which is nice in a couple ways. One, means you can leave it if it is that bad. And if it isn't that bad, you can choose to stay and make the best of it, knowing that you could leave and having that perspective and not feeling like you couldn't. And having that perspective, I have found at least, matters a fucking lot. So, thanks, Ralph. Now go smash Penelope's car and make me cry again.
I will never be good, and that's not bad.
Exactly. What is good?
Is good is trusting people.
What? Trust? You?
Crazy. I love the show Gravity Falls unapologetically. It's got a spot in one of my forever shows. I think its dialogue is phenomenal. I think it's just great, and its nerd references are just absolute sing to me. But one of the great things about the show is it's hinged on this kind of concept of duplicity and secrecy.
Mm-hmm.
And like the first episode, Dipper gets the book, the journal, and it says trust no one.
Oh yeah, it totally does. I forgot about that.
It preaches this kind of idea of paranoia, and most things actually happen when you're willing to disclose and trust. Like one of the more kind of powerful moments is the end of season 1, when Dipper doesn't think they should open the portal, and Grunkle Stan says, "Please, I need you to trust me." And Mabel just says, "I'll trust you," and lets it happen, and it gets back their other uncle that they didn't know they had.
Yeah.
And there's just like at the end of episode 1, he decides to trust Mabel and show the book. And at the start of season 2, he trusts, or yeah, he trusts Uncle Stan and shows the journal. There's so much value in trusting people close to you and not keeping things just secret to yourself. And that there's that, to quote one of my psychology professors, the only traction is in truth, and that comes with trust.
Say it again, baby. Say it again.
The only traction is in truth. You're welcome. So it does such a good job solidifying that, and there's so many little moments and episodes where it's like, just trust me, man. And like that idea is just constantly thrown around. And there's other good little ones, but I think that one is probably the most good takeaway from that show. It's just trust people.
Yeah.
Trust your family, trust your friends. Let them do the right thing.
That's awesome.
What do you got next?
So next up, I got The Incredibles.
Incroyable.
Incroyable.
We're going to stop speaking French. We're going to offend people.
Mostly people that speak French. So The Incredibles, the first one, please, is, I think, for my money, probably the best Pixar movie. Somebody argued a while back when MCU was in its heyday that Incredibles is top 5 superhero movies of all time. I was like, I mean, I love it, but, and then I thought about it for a little longer. I was like, nope, fucking nailed it. One of the best superhero movies of all time. Not close.
Yep.
And one of the things...
Still arguably is.
Yes. And arguably one of the things that makes it so great, at least for me, is the lesson that is taught, especially, speaking as a white cis male in America, is that it teaches you vulnerability is okay and that asking for help is necessary for success. And this is, especially as time goes on, is becoming less and less of a hot button issue, but especially in the time it came out. And, again, still to this day, it's getting better, but still to this day, that is a problem for a lot of men in the United States and probably the world, is being like, yo, I need help. Because there's been this stupid, toxic mythos that has been, we've been raised by, which is like, a man don't ask for nothing.
Yeah.
You're born on your own, you die on your own. Blah, 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 blah. I'm an idiot. Like, just,
you provide, you are rock, you are
exactly.
island.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And to have that, espoused, or dispoused, right? Dispoused, thank you. Dispoused by...
Espoused.
Espoused. So I was right the first time.
Yeah.
Yay, first time for everything. So espoused by the main character, who is this awesome, hilarious, Superman-like figure, matters a lot, especially as a kid watching this and having it kind of like earworm in the back of your head, be like, well, if he can ask for help, if he needs help, who am I to not need help?
Yeah. And I think one of the best things too is that at the start of the movie, he is the fucking top of his game.
Goated.
Yeah, he is the king, and they give him such a good reason, and his ego conflicting with his heart too. I think it's so good. Because he's not crazy in why he doesn't want to ask for help either. He's really hard to kill. He can walk in and take a punch. He is afraid of enlisting his family because he doesn't want to lose them again.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't want them to get hurt because he can't, but maybe they could also.
Yeah. Because he doesn't care about himself. He can take one for the team. It's fine. But they're more important. He can't risk it.
Yeah.
And that's so good. I hate how much sway that movie has on me still.
Moving along.
I mean, now is the obligatory Avatar stick in.
Yeah, this is the obligatory Avatar segment of the Super Pros Bros podcast,
You're
where
welcome.
Eli cannot help himself but talk about
Can't do.
something
I
involving
can't.
Uncle Iroh.
Actually, no. Well, yes, but
Yes,
also no.
yes, yeah.
Not entirely.
It's not 100% Iroh time.
It's not 100%, but it's like 30%. So one of the best things about one of the best things. Fuck me. Anyway, one of the recurrent themes is about the idea of family, and it's chosen.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about it, their families either suck or are gone. Aang's family, dead. Just straight up gone. Um, you know, Sokka and Katara, their mom has been taken, their dad is out fighting. Like, it's not purposeful negligence,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still separation. Toph, her parents suck. Like, they're these horrible, negligent, uncompromising cucks. They're terrible. They can't see her as a full human being, and they see her like a blind pet who needs to be helped, even though she is more than self-sufficient. And the Zuko, abusive family, and in every way, and his mother is again out of the picture. So the one positive source was taken away from him, so Iroh fills in. But it's choice, and that they choose to be a family. You get to choose.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not fixed because of your parentage. It's not fixed because of blood ties.
Yeah.
And it remains consistent on that note. And that's not a bad thing, and that you aren't determined by your biological family. Like, Zuko doesn't want to be Ozai.
Mm-hmm.
He finally gets to realize that, like, I don't have to be my dad.
Yeah.
I get to choose to be someone else. And that Toph can choose to, like, leave. Granted, running away is a bit questionable, but that's, neither here nor there. And that you do have agency in who you associate with and who you really decide to care about.
Mm-hmm.
All right, obligatory Avatar stint over. Moving on.
So, kind of speaking about choice, the lesson I really took away from Monsters Incorporated was that you can the future and the now is something you get to choose, especially the way you act in it. And more that I guess it should be a choice, not necessarily as much you get to choose, because there are bigger forces at work than us a large percentage of the time. However, just because it was this way doesn't mean it should be this way or needs to be this way. So much of Monsters Incorporated, and sadly our lives, are dictated by the past. Of, well, it's been this way, so it'll be this way. For instance, I was talking about this a surprising amount this week at work. The QWERTY keyboard was created with the original typewriter back in, I think it's Michigan. And the reason they made the QWERTY keyboard was to make it more difficult to type, not to make it easier, because they had this problem. If people typed too fast, the ribbon got caught, or the stick, like there was some confounding occurrence that happened.
Yeah, it could only, based on the mechanics of it, could only handle going so fast, otherwise it get jammed.
So to play around that, as it were, they figured, hey, what if we make a keyboard that is very difficult to type on, doesn't lead you to typing the right words quickly, assuming that, like, people aren't that fast to gravitate towards it. That'll solve the problem, as opposed to figuring out how to play around shit moving too fast, which is really funny that they didn't fix the core problem. And maybe it couldn't be fixed. Maybe they tried it and they just couldn't figure it out.
I don't think it could really be fixed at the time.
I hope so. Otherwise, this is just the laziest fucking shoddy big business maneuver I've ever seen. But whatever. Either way, that was however many. Hold on, I'm curious now.
You're looking at
when did the first typewriter come out?
I'm guessing a century.
1868.
Ooh, a century and a half.
Century and then some. So we've had it for that long. We have since figured out how to make better typewriters that don't jam nearly as often, and also, keyboards on the computers we're using to record this
Computers.
right now. And
Yay, digital. We've evolved past the ribbons.
yeah, we did it. So in all that time, there have been a lot of different keyboards. You can buy them, you can plug them into your computer, but almost nobody does because they've gotten so complacent in using the one, which makes sense because if you go somewhere else, you're going to have to use the old keyboard and it's a hassle. However, it doesn't need to be that way. We could have a keyboard that is better, that works for us, but we'd have to change everything.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of, societal things. And there are ones of those that we don't get to choose, depending upon where you work. If you're working, unless you want to be that guy, which, I don't think there's any shame in being that guy, but you still have to take the social onus of being that guy who brings his keyboard everywhere and plugs it into every computer he works on, which deal with that awkwardness. You do kind of have to put up with a lot of things, but sometimes stealing babies to make them, or not stealing babies, but scaring, children to power your city as opposed to making them laugh, maybe not the way to go. Maybe
Yeah.
treating a group like tens of millions, if not billions of people globally like shit so that 0.1% can live in the lap of luxury. Maybe that's not the way to go. What is the way to go, Broskinkowski?
It's all right to be different.
Thank
So,
goodness.
thank God. Growing up, one of my other favorite cartoon movies was Lilo and Stitch. Yeah, God knows how many times I watched that. And everybody in the core family is not normal in the traditional sense of, two parents, a cat and a dog, and a white picket fence. Normal. They are not that. They are so fucking far from that. It is outrageous. In one of the first scenes where you see Lilo in her room, she's got a fucking voodoo doll of her friends, and she puts them in a pickle jar, just shakes the shit out of them.
With spoons.
Yeah, it's like
There's
impromptu
an inordinate
voodoo
amount of
dolls.
spoons in the pickle jar. It's so fucking funny.
When like a social worker looks at her, she looks and says, "My friends need to be punished." Like Jesus Christ.
I'll call you a
I'm like,
sociopath. Neat.
yeah, like one of the first. I mean, the movie starts with her taking a sandwich to a fish
As
because
you do.
yeah, and we couldn't send him a tuna sandwich because tuna is fish. That'd be an abomination. And because Pudge controls the weather, obviously. Obviously. Lilo is so fucking far from normal and standard. Outrageous. And her sister is having to both be a big sister, be a mom, be a provider, and she's so out of her depth because her situation isn't normal. And so the whole movie, they fucking struggle. They struggle. It's rough. It's rough. There's a fucking social worker involved, which is never a great thing when that's forced on you. That's real bad. And then to add insult to injury, you have this fucking alien, literally, who is created and has no place to fit in because he's so different and alien. He's alien to aliens, for God's sake. And so much of the movie, they try to be normal and try to do the quote-unquote appropriate thing and fit in and be standard, and it doesn't fucking work. It just, at every turn, it just keeps going wrong. And when they finally just embrace the oddity and be themselves unapologetically, shit can finally go right. They don't have to be normal. They can be themselves and still make it work. There's nothing bad with being different. There's nothing wrong with being novel. There's nothing wrong with being a bit outside of the mold. And that's so good to hear.
Yeah.
Because for so many people, what the fuck is normal? And that's so heartwarming to me that it's okay to be different. It's not bad. What's next?
Kind of the same thing as being different. We've got the Iron Gigante.
Ah, the best role from.
One of the many
Oh my god, why did I just blank his name?
Vin Diesel.
Thank you. It's like he's always about family.
I love how like he's either talking about family or barely saying words in English.
And he's
He's
much
saying
better barely
Groot
saying words.
or Superman.
I still love that he got a specialized script for Guardians of the Galaxy.
What do you mean?
So apparently his script is actually the only one that's different, and they wrote in a sidebar what Groot is trying to communicate with those three words.
Oh, and each time he's
Yeah,
saying
so
it.
every time he says "I am Groot," there's like a sidebar. It's like he wants to say this.
Okay, that's so cool. That makes so much sense. But that is so cool that they did
but it's
that.
like, all right, try to enunciate this into that.
Yeah,
And the three words go.
Use these three words and really, really tell him your backstory. And he's like,
Yeah.
cool. How many houses am I buying with this paycheck? Neat. They'll fit my family in there. So
I mean, hey, it worked out.
it did work out, and we love him for it. So Iron Giant, if you haven't seen it, fucking fix your life. Was I believe I don't think it's a directorial debut, but maybe it is. Definitely the anime. I don't know. Brad Bird, who went to work for Pixar pretty shortly after this, came out, crushed, and did this. I was watching a thing about this morning. Iron Giant had less money and less time than every Disney feature that's ever been made, and less personnel. Like it had like half as many animators, half as much time to be made, and like probably half or less money. It was wild, and they make that banger. One of the lessons I got though from this movie about a giant during the Cold War fearful times is to not judge a book by its cover, and don't just other people blindly. And the best way that this is shown is not only the fantastic moments between Hogarth and the eponymous Iron Giant, but also with Mansley and his ever so less manly moments when he just like aggressively
He sits in his car and, oh my god! A bite out of my car. Like a bite out of a ham sandwich. Sorry.
You're good. So one of the things that is very interesting, the kind of juxtaposition, is you have Hogarth's trust. And some of it is blindly put, but by and large, it pays off in the biggest of ways. He does luckily dodge death because of a circumstance, but even when the robot does become fully weaponized, it is still Hogarth's childish, loving approach of understanding that saves the day. Not this like, yes, we're the best, we're the man, we're the woo-wah-woo. Like that approach that Mansley and the military seemingly take throughout the whole entire movie, which is not that far off.
What to tack onto that too, one of the most mature adults is someone kind of viewed down on because he's frou-frou artist.
Yeah,
Like he's not giving, like, Dean is not giving a high standing.
Dean.
Just imagine him shaking afterward. Anyway, like he's not given a high regard, and he's the one person who puts two and two together.
Mm-hmm.
And the giant is just responding to the weapon. The giant meets violence with violence.
Yep.
Like, it goes bigger than you can. And they don't want to listen to him because, well, he's not the military.
Yep. But very much this movie does a great job at, through the most like, it does present it in a relatively childish fashion, but it does, I think, troubleshoot around a lot of the, well, it's just a kid, well, this is just a kid's movie. This was made PG, and it really does allow for a lot more kind of, I don't want to say realism, because it doesn't go that deep, but it definitely does kind of do a decent job, if not a great job, that most other animated kids movies, in quotes, don't do when kind of presenting with, well, you know, let's take a look at this. Because it's not that the robot is innocent. The robot is a weapon. Like, Mansley is not wrong. It is a weapon. It is dangerous. However, just because it's dangerous doesn't mean it can't be, I don't want to say taught to be nice, but just because something has the ability to do harm doesn't mean it will, and doesn't mean it should be acted like it's going to.
Yeah, or that's all it can do.
Or that's all it can do. Like so many, like you'll see this with the rhetoric that's used around. This is gonna take a weird left turn for some of you, like ex-cons or something like that. Somebody comes out of prison, in their 40s or whatever like that, and they are judged by our society for basically ever. You have to write down. I understand the idea of this, but the functionality of it plays differently in my experience and from what I've been told. But you have to write down forever that you went to prison. You have to tell them forever that, I served time and be judged on that when that was an aspect of your life. And there's a lot of context that they're never going to find out about because they're never going to ask you because they're going to look at that and go, nope, not in my meat shop, not in my candy store.
Not in my backyard.
Exactly. And so the lesson I took away from this is that maybe, maybe this Iron Giant had, rough upbringing. Maybe he made a mistake. But one decision does not make us forever.
Yeah.
And so to be judging that person, especially depending upon, when, what happened, it all matters.
Yeah. You choose.
Yeah. You get to choose who you are. Just like Eli gets to choose his last animated lesson to teach us.
And it's one I appreciate because it's very personal. So it's coming from South Park, which bear with here, folks.
Stay with me.
stay on target. It comes from an episode that starts at an interesting spot. It's where Randy just drops the N-word on Wheel of Fortune.
I think I know it, but
am I just supposed to say it? Oh, the word was naggers. People who annoy you, naggers. Anyway, Stan spends so much of the episode trying to make it up and prove that he understands Token, and that he I get how it feels. And Token's, no, you don't. You don't get it. You have no fucking clue. And it's kind of interesting as a takeaway for me. I'm married to a black person. I know. Crazy. And she experiences stuff I will never understand. There's just I don't understand racism. I don't understand sexism from a first person point of view. The best I can do is some secondhand attempt at empathy, but I don't get it. And that's the epiphany that Stan has at the end of the episode. I don't get it. And that's all that Token needs to hear. That's it. He's not expecting Stan to fucking get it. He's not expecting him to be a perfect ally and, understand implicitly. No. Just the acknowledgement and the common understanding and respect that this is a problem you have and I don't.
Yep.
I don't get it. I do not understand, and I will not understand. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But the acknowledgement that you don't get it, not just blind dismissal, but knowing understanding of that ignorance and that impossibility to empathize perfectly is so important. And it's, especially again for me, because I remember when I was stupid in 20, and I tried to I get it. It's no, you fucking don't.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You can't. You know why? Look at your skin color, Eli. What a fucking thought. So, I think that is one of the best. And granted, that lesson is very much crafted. It's not, accidental. It's very much made for that. But it is such a great lesson that I love that came out of that show.
Mm-hmm.
Which I find kind of funny that some of that's one of the high points for lesson. Then you have other episodes like Cartman beating up a little person. Not sure where they went wrong with that one, but that and gay fishes. Anyway, bring it home, Isaac.
Always the gay fish. So the last one, and I'm going to go on a bit of a long-winded tirade because this is, if I was going to only submit one show to Movies with Mikey's kind of request of, what lessons did animation teach you, what piece of animation taught you the most, it would be Adventure Time. It's for Eli, it's
human.
I literally, the rest of my brain completed that.
It's Adventure Time.
So while my cohort Eli loves to refer to Gravity Falls and especially Avatar, for me everything goes back to Adventure Time. One of the most, so I've probably talked about it a little bit, or maybe some of it's gotten eschewed and kind of swept underneath the floorboards. But in the last 365 days, I have gone from dealing, not quite, I guess it's been a little bit longer than that, but relatively close to there. So last year, I was dealing one of the best paid dealing positions I've ever gotten, and most people ever get the opportunity to. I went from doing that to being on like workman's comp for a little bit for my back, and taking too long, so I didn't get my position back when the show started back up after we kind of took a break, to then feeling like I wasn't valued because I wasn't, and quitting and starting to do substitute teaching where I was drastically underqualified, to having panic attacks, to then being a tutor at a charter school. One of the biggest lessons that got me through that I got from Adventure Time, which is sucking at something is the first step to being sort of good at something, which for anybody that has taught or knows teachers is something that they or you experienced. Because you, like my friend said, and I didn't want to hear it, but I totally helped that he told to me, you're going to fucking suck at this for years. For the first 3 to 5 years, you are going to be shit at this. Accept that. I was like, okay, buddy. My mom was a teacher. I think I got this under wraps. Day one, I was driving home crying, looking for an excuse and a bridge big enough to jump off of. I was in the worst shape I've ever been. After, hold on, let me do some math. 5 hours with fifth graders. I wanted to not be alive anymore. It destroyed me. Going from something where I'd spent 15 years being fucking busted at to being something I was shit at so fast gave me so much mental whiplash. And I have now at my job where I think I am getting progressively better. I'm still bad. I still suck. I have said some stuff to children that no child should hear, and I had to make apologies because I am a mediocre adult at best. And there is a sign literally right next to where I work that has that exact same thing that I paid $10 for somebody to make a beautiful poster on Etsy. Just saying, it's just Jake hugging Finn in his, demoralized state, being like, dude, sucking at something is the first step to be sort of good at something. And it's very true, and it's very hard to accept. But that's, if you want to be good at something, like good at something, not okay, good at something, you are going to fucking suck. This isn't a movie. This isn't an animated classic where the kid picks up a sword and is a natural. That happens for like 0.01% of the population. And It only happens for a moment. It only happens in T-ball. Nobody walks on to the Lakers never having played a game of basketball and starts sinking threes. It doesn't fucking happen. Happens when you're a kid and everybody else sucks and you look great in comparison. And it's only going to happen for a year.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, somebody who listened to sucking is the first step to being sort of good and went, I want to be fucking the best, and put all of their energy into that, they're going to blow you out of the water. They might have sucked 2 years ago, but now they're better than you because they want it now. So if you want it, be okay sucking.
Yeah.
The next one that I got, and this is from the oddest source if you've watched the show and Princess Bubblegum, but it is a great one, and one to remember, especially in times such as these. as the world is tumultuous and people are, changing identities and changing the way they want to be referred, and everything's changing. And it's only going to change more and faster, which, but also, what are you going to do? People get built different. We don't need to figure it out. We just need to respect it. So very similar to what Eli was saying about South Park. You're not going to get most people's stories, if anybody's stories of their life. You're not going to understand where they came from. You're not going to understand their suffering.
Yeah.
But you can respect it, and you can respect them and love them and treat them right.
Yeah.
And that last part is the most important, is treat them right. Treat them the way that they want to be treated, obviously within, don't be like giving them all of your possessions or some nonsense. Don't get cheated out of all your thingamajigs. But, when it comes to things that you can give away for free, like respect and, common decency, give it to them. It's, as annoying as that is, as much as it feels like they're getting something for free, they're not. You're also a better person. You're also making the world a better place. Just treat people with respect. And to round this out, and my favorite characters, one of the best characters I think ever written in the show, being the Ice King, is that people do bad, they aren't bad. So much of life, we look at people, especially in these times, we look at something and go, that's a bad person. And while there are plenty of people that look like cartoon villains, and there are some that are, by and large, most people are, at their core, they are good. They want to do good things. Maybe for only the people they love and like, but they want to add to the world. They do not want to take away from it. The people that are stealing aren't trying to take away from you. They're trying to give to others, and that's the way they know how. People that are hurting other people are generally doing it in protective fashions. Sometimes misaligned, maligned, or just a bit crazy. They are trying to protect somebody in their most potentially barbaric way possible, but they are trying to protect someone at the end of the day. And even though that person might need to be stopped, that person might need to be jailed, killed even, they are not a bad person. They are doing bad. I think that is an important distinction, even though sometimes it doesn't seem to matter. Any other final thoughts before we send it to commercial break?
Nah, I don't know that I entirely agree with that one, but I'd get into way too much nitty gritty pattern of behavior kind of thing.
It doesn't hold up at 100%. And I'm not saying that there aren't people
No.
that are monsters. There are people that are truly villainous, but I think at the core of everything, people are good or mean well in some like twisted way. And I think the most important thing, honestly, isn't necessarily understanding them, like you were saying earlier, but just not judging them in this full sale, you're a bad person, as opposed to, you did a fucked up thing. Because when you say somebody's a bad person, you're you're basically taking out their character sheet and coloring their whole entire figure in a villainous marker, as opposed to coloring their action in a villainous way. And their action deserves to be colored in a villainous way. Do not let me, just because you're saying they're a good person and they mean well, doesn't mean their action isn't horrific. But the reason people are doing that, and to call somebody evil or to call somebody, bad, and say they are bad versus their actions are bad, I think changes not only our society, but also our interaction with that person. Because if they're bad, it just it means you can do bad things to them, which, has trickle down effects in a very fast fashion that I think are just a net negative. So I say again, anything to add before we send it to commercial break?
No, I think I'm happy.
Hit it!
Have you ever thought, I really, really want to be humming the same song for weeks to annoy my coworker? Well, let's go see some classic animated kids movies. Because you're surely going to be taken hostage by your 5-year-old as they repeatedly demand that they've got to see it. And then deal with them lamenting how they really want all the merchandise as you're walking through the stores. And it's everywhere, isn't it? Not to mention, those songs are going to follow you home too. You're not safe. Such studios as Disney and DreamWorks printing these things, you're bound to leave with an insidious and infectious earworm that you're gonna be humming. All because your kids never stop singing it in the shower. But hey, at least the creators know you're being forced and coerced by those Lankerbiters, and they throw in some jokes just to make it bearable. Welcome back, everybody.
Hey, kids.
Okay.
Hello,
Barney.
children. What you got on the old work table there, Broskinkowski?
So what does deprogramming zealotry look like?
Microsoft. Oh, sorry. Was that not a question?
um, so I so there's kind of the idea that like people are radicalized, and I've been trying to think what would it look like to walk someone out of that,
Okay.
because that's like especially if you were raised in something in effect like
Mhm.
if you so one of the groups of people I'm writing for in this big writing project that's slowly coming together is the wildlings, who are effectively anarchists. They believe that the gross industrialization and horrific wealth discrepancy is an abomination. They believe that doing things the legal way is inefficient and a horrendous misuse of their abilities, since most of them are adapted. They have powers. And they believe that violence is a more effective communicator and agency or a mechanism of change. They believe that the ends justify the means, and that the adapted who work alongside the industrial giants and tycoons are fucking it up. They believe they've been led astray, and they are working for the wrong reasons.
Yay!
Which, they're not crazy, because, late stage capitalism, as we see in America, it was great. But maybe violence isn't the right way. And when things get real bad, when someone goes, I don't know if this is how we should be doing things, how does he get out?
Yeah.
And so Whelp is one of the wildlings. And he was brought in early when people saw him with potential, when he was displaced and they said, hey, we can bring you in.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a place where he got to turn, anger and rage at situation into actionable things. He got to turn anger, frustration, and bitterness into feeling strong. And that is an easy thing to foster in people. And that is an easy thing to cling on to because it feels powerful. Violence feels powerful. And it's a drug just like anything else. It is addicting. But when you have quiet moments and can think, is this the best way to do it? And when you come to the conclusion that no, maybe it isn't, how do you walk away? It's all you've known. And that is Whelp's primary conundrum, is that as he gets embroiled in conflict that goes well beyond what he thinks the scope of what it should, he wants to leave. But that would mean abandoning his entire identity and 5 years of his life, even though he's only 17. That's a huge chunk of his life. He'd be walking away from a family he has made, that he has fought with and watched people die with. And so he has to make that choice because it's wrong.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is wrong.
Jesus. Ah. Brain go, ah.
So I've had kind of a fun time writing up his trajectory.
Yeah.
I was just like his gimmick. He just turns into a dragon. The bigger he gets, the longer he can hold it. Or the less time he can hold it for, and the more brainless he becomes.
It's a good balance system.
Yeah, so generally speaking, he'll just be like 8 feet tall and he can have wings and a small breath weapon, but he can hold the form for a while and he's pretty intelligent. But if he wants to, he could just be the size of a house and be like a fucking gargantuan dragon out of D&D and just
Nice.
lay waste to a small city. But he has no self-control, and so he'll just burn everything. So very rare do we just go absolutely horseshit with him and be a Titanic level threat because he doesn't want to just cook his friends.
What? Come
Yeah,
on.
I know, crazy.
Take him to the barbecue.
Also fun with his name because he's not big if he's
Yeah.
out of his power, so he's just called
Yeah, yeah.
Whelp.
Nice, nice double entendre. Like it.
Anyway, what do you got?
So I was thinking the other day of how there is I was at work. There was a lot of young, at-risk teens, as they would be described,
Hmm.
as I work as I work at a charter school. And there was this. They talked about something. I don't remember what it was. Very much in their sphere of existence, not in mine. And there was this unspoken understanding
Hmm.
about, like, yeah, you don't do this. It's like, huh. I mean, it makes sense, but I hadn't thought about that. I was like, what if, like, I don't remember, you were telling me there's some great author who's like, every great story starts with what if.
Stephen King.
Stephen King, yeah. The GOAT. Also had a banger tweet this week. I don't know if you saw it.
No.
Some guy was talking shit about somebody, and Stephen King's like, dude, you make a podcast or something like that. He's like, maybe calm the fuck down. And are you looking it up right now?
Yes, I am. Sorry. I think you're probably referring to as a guy said Joe Biden is the worst president in U.S. history, and Stephen King's response is at least he has a job.
Yeah. So read the response under it though. It's like yeah, but and he like responded to him. He's like, yeah, well, like he basically hold on. There's a response he had. He was like something about like, yo, I have like a job. I have like blah 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 blah. It's just like he's like clouding on Stephen King. It's like, motherfucker, you have a podcast, successful or not. Stephen King has made like millions of dollars and hundreds of books. Maybe shut the fuck up. It was a very yeah, it was very foolish. Either which way, great tweet. You can find it online, and then Patton Oswalt like came to Stephen King's defense, not that he needed it. It was like just threw a nice little jab in there. Either which way, all good stories come from a what if premise. And I was thinking, what if a kid, well-meaning kid, ends up through a series of maybe odd or just familial engagements, ends up crashing with some kind of some family he hasn't really been around, doesn't really know that much about, and they are a little bit more of the off the beaten path, like they don't call the police when their house gets broken into, if you will, circumstance, and ends up where he like kind of like reverse engineer Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Instead of him going to Carlton like goes and hangs out in Philly with Will Smith, and then Will Smith smacks him in the face and tells him to keep something out of his mouth. Let's say that circumstance occurs. So
Fine.
the way I'm kind of envisioning this is he goes there, he's hanging out, he thinks he knows things, but he doesn't. Has that what's it called? When you think you know stuff, but you're just violently wrong.
Misinformed, ignorant.
No, there's like a thing, right? Isn't there like a theory or like the less you know, the more you think you know?
Oh, like Dunning-Kruger
Yeah, like
syndrome?
has like a kind of Dunning-Kruger circumstance where he's like, yeah, I like his cousin's like, you know how this works, right? Like, I'll explain it to you if you want, but I don't want to like, kind of step on you, make you feel small by me, like, talking down to you. And the guy's, no, I got it. I know what this is. I'm hip, just like is like kind of claiming what he is not. And cousin's like, okay. And they go, and the cousin's part of like a low key gang that is very much, the peace has been acquired between the two, you know, gangs of said neighborhood, if you will.
Mhm.
And a circumstance happens where one group does something And trying to do a solid for his cousin, the new kid in town rats on the other gang, thinking that'll get him street cred, like he'll be appreciated and seen as like a contributing member as opposed to this awkward kid that they're kind of is playing tag along. What he doesn't know is that is insanely frowned upon, and he has now undone the truce. And so now it's back to the good old days that everybody wanted to forget, where violence was rampant and shit's off the hook now. And so he has to deal with the ramifications of not only causing that, but being in it. The way I currently have it ending is that he, lots of bloodshed. He kind of grows up and sees this world for what it is. And instead of taking the out of bailing and leaving his cousin with this, he decides to take the charge, and he goes to like juvenile hall or something like that, or does a stint in jail, or he takes the L that he is effectively deserved, as opposed to the out that he doesn't have any right to.
Yeah,
that's what I'm cooking with.
Fun.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested. This is something I don't know about, but I do know about, because I've been that dumb idiot around groups where I was trying to fit in, didn't.
You're the odd man out.
I was the odd man out, and I was definitely trying to oh yeah, and I can do this, and they're just like,
I can hang.
Okay,
promise.
Yeah, I'm like I haven't ever, thankfully, uttered the words "I'm hip," but I definitely have felt that, like looking back at the cringe.
I'm cool.
Yeah, I'm cool. I'm with it. It's like, whoa. And so, like, while I do not have the perspective of being in a circumstance as some are, I don't want to say afflicted, but kind of stuck with, I do understand wanting to be in. So I think this, while writing from the outside, I think that might almost give me like better sensibilities, while it doesn't give me the information I'll need to, work to like kind of, suss out. But this is a very fun project, in that I feel 50% right for it and 50% violently wrong for it, which I think makes it even better, which is weird. Speaking of things that aren't weird, what recommendations you got this week?
Given the theme of our day, I will leave people the recommendation Spirited Away, which I think is maybe Miyazaki's best movie. It's debatable.
What is Miyazaki's most what? I heard Miyazaki's most movie.
I said maybe Miyazaki's best movie.
The Academy Award certainly thought so.
I mean, the movie's phenomenal, irrespective
it's
of whether you think something's better now. That it's great. It is a wonderful visual spectacle. It's filled with just great banter, great sequences. No Face is still frightening. Yeah, it's terrific. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Like, I don't care how old you are or how young you are. Go watch it. It's great.
Well, if how No Face is the person that you find the most frightening. I'm over here thinking about that giant fucking baby.
Fair. Mostly just the way that, like, No Face eats everything is just kind of unsettling.
Yeah. No, it's off-putting to be sure.
Also, weird one. I think the witch who runs the bathhouse is an allegory for Baba Yaga.
Interesting.
Weird tidbit that, like, Artemis and I kind of stumbled on. Like, wait a minute, what? I don't know why Artemis was looking into Baba Yaga, but
wait, can you give a brief TLDR, or is it too much of a deep dive?
A lot of her physical attributes fit, like, kind of Baba Yaga. The fact that she Baba Yaga flies around in like a mortar and pestle, and I think like there's a huge one in her office for some reason. Yeah, it's
coincidence. I think not.
It's some very strange, like, what the fuck is happening here? She described like this giant, like with a giant head compared to the rest of her body, and it's like, there's just some weird design choices here. I don't know. So yeah, Also, God bless the soot sprites. And for some reason, I feel like he has to include those in every movie he makes. Has to have soot sprites. It's
Yeah.
not true, but I feel like they're everywhere. They're always adorable.
They might be everywhere. They're fucking amazing every time. They're cute as shit. Definitely,
I,
if I was now that I'm thinking about it, definitely I can imagine getting that as a tattoo. It's like a soot sprite on like the ankle or something like that. Good choice.
what do you got to recommend for people?
What I have to not recommend is Sonic 2.
Oh,
Was on
damn.
recently on a plane back from Minneapolis off my lovely time after the Pro Tour, and love Delta. Will fly Delta forever. Would recommend Delta forever. They give you infinite snacks. I got like double bag of Sun Chips, double what's that cookie that I love so much? Biscoff cookie. Got like a thing of Sprite, all free, free Wi-Fi, free movies to watch that were new. It's like Sonic 2, for instance. And I was like, sweet, are good things. I've seen clips of it. I'm here for it. And then I'm watching, and I'm like 15 minutes in. I'm like, I just can't. Nah, I'm out. I'm just like fucking dipped on it. It's so bad. The exposition, the formulaic writing, the blah 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 blah. It was just cringe all the way down. Sans Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey was a delight as he usually is, and he was fucking tearing up the scenery, loving it. Every scene with
Is Jim
Sonic,
Carrey will be Jim Carrey.
exactly. Sonic was annoying to watch. Tails was so bad. Just like they have him talking to no one as if someone's listening. Which unless he has a hidden comm later, which groan, like it's just such like why are you having this guy do like what? Like he's just like talking to tell you what he's doing instead of just doing it and you figuring it out. Like it was just unbelievably annoying and just it was just bad. If y'all like it, cool. Watch the first 15 minutes and see if you feel the same way. I don't know, on your next Delta flight, and then watch something else. Hopefully, what I would recommend watching, and I loved, and I cannot believe this is like Zootopia all over again for me. Is when Zootopia came out. For those of you who haven't seen the episode where we talk about how much of a numpty I am and just full sale lost my shit on their first ad, which I stand by is a garbage ad. Uh, it took my brother and my whole entire family to be like, yo, shut up and watch this. And then I watched it and I was like, damn it. You're right. This movie's busted. It has no right to be this busted, but it's busted. Same thing happened with me with Paddington. The first one and now the second one. It's like, nah, can't, stupid, whatever. And then I watched them like, fuck, it's great. They just like nailed it. Stuff for kids, stuff for adults. This is just sweet, lovely goodness. And first one was dope. Second one might actually be even better, which is insane because the first one is quite delightful.
Oh,
Yeah, just the second one is bangers all the way down. Great acting, great shot comp, great story. And it is just a kid story. It is so kid, but it's also so perfectly kid.
yeah.
I just yeah, go watch it. It's amazing. It's got it's got great acting, great it's just choice. It's so good. And it has no right to be this good. It could have easily done a lot of these other things and been fine, but they never took the easy way out. They did the Ted Lasso thing of troubleshooting in all the good directions, and it's just lovely. And stupid. There's a scene where a character is going around in drag stealing stuff, and this cop is reminiscent, like he's telling his version of the story, and it's like clearly, he is like a what's it called? A not an untrustworthy narrator of his own story, and you see it in the flashback of he's like, I ran after with a fast pace, and then he's just like basically like jogging with a cup of coffee, like careful to not spill it. And like he's talking about the nunny scene he saw, which was a man dressed as a woman. He goes, "Oh, I'd never forget her. She was the most beautiful nun I've ever seen." It's like it's stupid, but it's also hilarious. Like it's just I don't know. It's something about it is just so choice. It's so great. I cannot recommend it highly enough. It's also got one of the doctors in the movie, not as the doctor, but one of your boys was in there as like the most recent doctor,
Oh,
the old guy.
oh, I
Yep, him. Nailed it. Good job.
can see him. I can hear him. For fuck's sake. He's on a British show swearing at people constantly.
That is every show he's ever been on. You are correct.
I refuse to Google.
I don't. Why is it? What? Oh, my brother tries to figure that
Ah!
out. Wow.
My brother's a fucking aneurysm.
I've got you when you went out.
Give me a first name.
Peter.
Capaldi.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I assume he wasn't swearing at everything in this.
Not swearing, but he was trying as much as as you could, like a GPG movie. He's very much one of the antagonistic characters of the film, and it's hilarious. He's just like a great hunk of shit that you're just like, God, you suck, and you can't wait until he gets like a talking to. It's great. The movie's just bangers all the way down. Just go see it. Paddington 2, goated. And to sing you out, as they might have said one time that we no longer live in, I would recommend Portugal the Man. Though current era might have is What Me Worry, and the oldie but a goodie is Noise Pollution. Either of those are A+ hits,
yep,
in my opinion, and will leave you singing on sunshine, so to speak. So get after it if you want.
Noted. All right. Well, but that is going to be our episode. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and if you enjoyed it, please feel free to
Like,
comment,
share,
and subscribe.
but don't forget, new episodes of Super Pros Bros come out the first and third Saturday of every month.
Bye.